How are New Testament believers to think about Old Testament commands? Are the 10 commandments in force for New Testament believers? Are the next 10 and the next 10 and the next 10? Which commands can we safely ignore? And which commands are we to take seriously? Which commands are we to apply from the Old Testament? That'll be the topic that we'll be dealing with today. But before we get into that, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about the topic, how to listen to a message, how to listen. I would encourage you to spend a little time talking about to your people about how to listen to a message. And let me give you a few key points. Jesus said, pay attention to how you hear. There's a tendency to think that if I sit in church and I listen to a message, or I sit in a Sunday school class and I listen to a teaching, that I am automatically growing. And we know it is often not the case. And so we want to be very careful how we listen. And let's look at some key points about that. First of all, we do not want to listen merely for information. We don't want to listen simply to become smarter sinners. We don't want to listen for somebody else. Have you ever been guilty of that? I've been guilty of that. I've been guilty of that in my preparation sometimes. Sometimes I'll prepare for a message and I think, oh man, if so-and-so would just listen to this and apply this. And about 9 times out of 10, I notice they don't show up, and maybe God has something to do with that. I'm not really sure, but there is this tendency to listen to a message and think, oh, this if so-and-so would listen to this, good things would happen to them. Sometimes we listen to a teaching for the view of, it seems, a feeling mildly guilty. I have people listen to me sometimes when I teach and say, oh, Brother Josh, you really stepped on my toes today. You really did a good one today because you stepped on my toes. Well, my point is not actually to step on your toes. In fact, condemnation has no place in Christian living. There is therefore now, what's that next line? No condemnation. There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ. And condemnation has no place in Christian living. Conviction does. Conviction has to do with a specific item, where condemnation is kind of a global sense of shame that I am not a good person. And condemnation has no place in the Christian life. We are to listen for personal application. We are to listen for personal application, but we are not to listen for moralism. That is, not trying really hard to be good so that God will love us. But we are to listen for personal application. And this personal application has a kind of two-fisted approach to it. And that is, first of all, we listen with a humility to know that I cannot obey this without Christ. I cannot obey. In fact, I can't even know what I need to obey unless God opens my eyes to see the fault that is within me. And secondly, I need to listen with a confidence that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I hear many people say over the years, well, yes, they're just sinners and we're sinners and that's that. And, we ought to try really hard to be good and that's that. And no, we want to listen with a view to, I can't do this without Christ, but I can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So we want to listen for those aspects as we go through today's passage and ask ourselves again, how do New Testament Christians apply Old Testament commands? So here's our passage, Exodus 20, and you might want to ask your people, as I asked my people yesterday, Exodus 20. What is Exodus 20? And hopefully everyone will know that is the 10 Commandments, and you might ask them the question I asked yesterday, and that is, what is in Exodus 21? And it's pretty much 10 more commandments. And Exodus 22 is 10 more commandments, and Exodus 23 is 10 more commandments. And the question we want to ask is, which one of those can we safely ignore, and which ones do we need to take seriously? So here is Exodus 20, beginning in verse 8.